Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
It's a terrific feeling when your business is starting to grow. Money's coming in, you can purchase new equipment and perhaps hire more staff. But as the headcount increases, so does the need for an HR solution. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. It takes time and know-how to sort out the legal and tax obligations and challenges of onboarding new workers. Particularly for small to medium-sized businesses, there comes a time when HR expertise becomes essential. But when exactly? What kind of HR help is needed? And how do you choose the right HR support? For those questions, we turn to Ilona Charles, CEO and co-founder of shilo.people, a leading provider of on-demand HR professionals. She says good HR should understand your industry and what you're looking to achieve. Unfortunately, Ilona Charles admits to Chris Ashmore, HR often gets a bad rap. Some of it isn't justified, but sometimes, she says, it is.
HR is often seen as very process and rules-driven. They can sometimes have a tendency to overcomplicate solutions, and unfortunately often they don't even understand the business that they're supporting or the key drivers of that business. So I think those things combined can lead to HR getting a bit of a bad rap in business, full stop, no matter whether it's small or big.
Nonetheless, there does come a time when a small business is looking for external help, for advice for their human resources. In your experience, when should a business start to consider engaging with an outsourced HR firm?
Yeah, look, it's going to be different for every business, and a lot of business owners are having to do all the HR themselves. But I could be really simplistic and say as soon as you start employing people, you probably could do with a little bit of HR support, not a lot. But the moment you start employing people, there's a myriad of legislation that you need to be aware of, regulations. It can be a bit of a minefield if you're not familiar with all of that. So I think it's worthwhile getting some advice early on as you start to bring people on. Then also, in my experience and speaking to a lot of small business owners, when you get to a size of about 15 people, and which is starting to get a bit large, I guess, that's when you start to get a whole lot of interpersonal issues happening. Performance issues might start to arise, and you might start to get a bit of conflict in the workplace. And I think that's when business owners really start to feel the strain of employee issues. And that's where someone with HR background and experience can come in, provide a bit of advice, maybe put some frameworks in place to help them manage those situations ongoing. But certainly at the start, you've got payroll, policies, employment contracts to deal with. I think it is worthwhile getting some advice early on.
I've heard the term people and culture as a new term perhaps
Yes.
from HR, particularly big business and the public service. Why is that? What does that mean? And is it any different from HR?
Effectively, it's all human resources. So it's the business of dealing with people and making workforces as effective as they can be. That's really what the goal should be. The shift in titles are really just trying to shift an emphasis in where HR is focused. So human resources is it's treating people as another resource, just like you would capital or funding resources. So it makes people sound a bit like widgets, So the move to people and culture is to articulate really what the focus is. It's on the people that work in the business and the culture that you're trying to create, which we haven't touched on a lot today about culture, but HR can certainly help you in that space as well. It's sort of shifting still, people experience around what's the experience we're trying to create for our workforce to keep the best people and to attract them to our company.
Well, say I'm a small business and I'm thinking of engaging with an HR firm.
Yep.
What kind of services can I expect to receive from an outsourced HR company?
Look, once again, it depends a bit on the type of HR service that you engage. So there are a lot of different types of HR services. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg because you sort of need to know what problem you're trying to solve as to which HR service you engage. But there are some subscription services out there which are great, which are phone-based support, where you don't need to bring an HR person in. They tend to focus more on those employee relations or industrial relations type matters. So if you need help on employment contracts or employment policies or health and safety legislation, some of those services can be really useful. Then you get a lot of individual or niche HR service providers. They might have a good, solid generalist HR background and can help the business in a whole range of employment-related issues. They might, as they get a bit bigger or they're having trouble attracting the right people into their workplace and then keeping them, so they might start to provide a bit more strategic HR advice around attraction and retention or employee engagement. And then you'll have some bigger consulting firms, which are usually, at the top end quite pricey and probably not where a small business should be heading. They're just too expensive for what they need.
Mazars is an international audit, tax and advisory firm committed to helping clients confidently build and grow their businesses. Experience a new perspective with Mazars. Visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.
What should a business look for when shopping around for support?
Yeah, I think as we started the conversation around HR, you've got to be really careful with who you select. And there's probably some key questions or things to be looking out for when you're engaging with an HR person or consulting firm, wherever you go. One is, do they understand your business? What sort of questions are they asking you as a business owner about what your business is? What sort of workforce do you engage? Actually showing a real genuine interest in the problems that you're trying to solve and the key drivers of your business success. I think a good HR person will ask those sort of questions. If they're asking lots of HR jargon type questions, then you might want to think a bit differently and maybe shop around a little bit further until you find someone who actually is genuinely interested in what you're doing. The second thing I would say is that they actually demonstrate a really strong interest and curiosity about you and a genuine concern for you as the business owner. So often, all of these issues fall on the business owner to deal with, and it can be quite stressful and very lonely. So I think HR can provide a really good sort of trusted advisor role as well for that business owner and someone they can talk to about how to manage these things rather than bringing HR in to do it all for them, if that makes sense. So once again, not just showing an interest in your business, but an interest in you and what are the problems that you're trying to solve as a business owner. The other things which you would look for in any consulting or any support, what's the sort of experience and capability that they're bringing to the table? So are they able to articulate a really appropriate balance between sort of core foundational HR work versus some of the more strategic things? Are they pragmatic in their approach? What you don't want them to come in and do is boil the ocean and have really complex solutions, which either you as a business owner or your workforce just won't understand or use, which is just a waste of money. I mean, that's just some of the key things to look for, but the sort of questions they ask, how they approach the problems that you're articulating, and just that genuine care and empathy for what your business is going for, I think are really important things to look for in HR support.
And when it comes to different industries, do they have their own different HR issues as well? And should an HR firm be specific to that industry?
Yeah, look, I think HR issues generally will be same industry to industry, but what will differ is obviously the type of workforce that you're employing and the type of business you're in. So it's about finding someone that can take everything they know in their HR field and apply it to your specific needs. So you don't want just a cookie cutter approach. You want someone who can be quite targeted in the sort of HR solutions they're providing. So people are people, no matter what industry you work in. So I guess the short answer is I don't think you need to find someone who's worked specifically in your industry. It certainly helps in the understanding, but it's not essential to the outcome.
That was shilo.people CEO and co-founder Ilona Charles. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.